With me, we got our two contestants today. We have Connor and we have
Hello.
Jesse.
Hello.
How are you two doing today?
Oh, just peachy.
Yeah, it's been just a normal old day.
Just a normal old day,
Absolutely nothing has been going on. Very calm.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. For those watching this right now, this is pre-recorded. We did knock out a couple shows today, which is a Saturday, which is just hours after Bryan Reynolds demanded a trade. So, much like the other show with Tyler, if that's already been out or not, I'm not sure the the episodes, how they're going to come out in order. But yeah, we got a lot to talk about today. So Bryan Reynolds did bless us with information to discuss. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
He did it at a perfect time, to be honest. I think he planned to do it around the winter meetings because it's gonna be a lot of chatter, a lot of time for Cherington to talk to some of the other GMs,
Right.
and maybe get his wish.
Maybe. So I'll tell you what, because we'll save that. We got a lot to talk about on that end. So before we do that, let's kind of introduce you two. So as mentioned, we do have Connor. Connor, if you don't mind, why don't you tell everyone a little bit your name, how old you are, where you're from?
So I'm Connor. I'm 21. Huge Pirates fan, obviously. From Maryland, which is a lot better than where Jim is from, which is why we're doing this. So
facts, because Jim's getting the boot. We're sick.
Yeah,
of him.
No, we're getting rid of him. Get him out of here.
Challenge accepted.
And tell us why you want to be on NS9.
Because at the moment I have nothing better to do with my time.
That's the best way. That's the only reason I can imagine. Cool. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Connor. Jesse, why don't you tell us the same thing?
My name's Jesse. I'm from Pittsburgh. I now live in Tallahassee, Florida, so we're pretty close to each other there, Donato.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
cool.
We'll head up a spring training game or something. I'm 30, and I want to be on the podcast because, one, my girlfriend is tired of me talking Pirates to her. Pretty simple. This way I have people to talk to that might want to listen a little bit.
So you're doing it for love.
Oh, yeah.
I guess I can understand that. Awesome. So we have one going on because there's nothing going on with his life.
Oh,
and the
yeah,
other one going
absolutely
on
nothing.
Wants to come on. Well, yeah, okay.
I think it's the reverse, that I have so much going on.
Right. And then yeah, another one coming on because he annoys his girlfriend. So really,
simple.
she's pushing you. She's
100%.
like, go do this. Understand. All right. Well, appreciate you coming on, doing the show. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to come into some questions. Let's talk a little bit of Pirates. Each of you, we're going to bring on a topic. So I'll tell you what, pick a number between 1 and 7.
4.
7.
It's 4. So Connor, you got it. So you go first. So go ahead and talk your topic.
I wanted to bring up the rotation a little bit. I was going to talk about whether or not to bring in a guy like Kyle Gibson. Obviously, it can't be like actually Kyle Gibson now that he is signed with the. What was the length and the amount for that deal, by the way?
It's 1 year, but there's no money.
Okay.
Same. I haven't seen anything reported yet as far as the actual terms. Yeah, except for the 1 year.
So I kind of wanted to describe like my journey with my thoughts on that, because at first I was like, ew, Kyle Gibson. But then, like, as time went on and I started to see the market a little bit more, and like what Matthew Boyd got, and what was the reliever in Boston? He was with the Dodgers last year. He was traded midseason.
Eovaldi?
No. He just signed like 2 years, $17 million in Boston. Anyways, so
Jansen? Wait, weren't they looking at Jansen?
No, they signed. He's an older guy, 36. Oh my God, Chris Martin. Thank you. So Chris Martin, that was like 2 years, $17 million, and these are like reliever contracts. And then
I totally missed that, by the way.
And then it started. And then the rumors about what Tyon was looking to get, and the market started to come out, and it was like, over 4 years, surpassing the money that John Gray got. And it was like, okay, if the market is this thin and this is what people are getting Kyle Gibson for like relatively cheap probably isn't that bad right now. So now that he's gone, I don't really know what their targets would be, because admittedly this market's thin. Like even when you start to include trades, guys that are reasonably within the Pirates like grasp, there aren't a ton of them. So if they're actually looking to like improve their rotation over what it was last year, I'm not sure how much sense it would make to really do that this offseason anymore.
I personally think the Pirates are going to jump out of what they typically do with the 1 year, $4 million, $3 million deal. I think they're actually going to pay somebody. I think they're going to give somebody a 2 year, 3 year type deal, like a Quintana or maybe Sean Manaea, and actually fork over the money, because Cherington has said he wants to make this team better for 23. But I'm hoping it's 23, 24, and 25.
Right. That was my initial like reaction, to Gibson, was that I didn't think he actually made the team that much better. I mean, sure, he'll give you like 170 innings, but like how good are those innings actually going to be? Are they actually going to be significantly better than, they're going to be significantly better than Bryce Wilson, but Bryce Wilson isn't a major league pitcher. Being better than somebody that isn't a major leaguer, is not, that doesn't impress me. I'll put it that way.
But I think Gibson's a little bit better than that. He's pretty much a career 2-WAR pitcher. So he's at least above average, and it's not Bryce Wilson or Zach Thompson. That taking Zach Thompson and Bryce Wilson off this team makes them a better team altogether. It's not a huge jump.
I would agree.
But it is a jump at the end of the day.
I would certainly agree. I just don't. I think they could do a whole lot better than Kyle Gibson, was my argument against him, really.
That I understand. But I really think he was going to be like the number 5 while they were still looking for a 2 or 3.
I could see that. And it's also, there's some argument that like, it's particularly last year, his past year wasn't especially appealing, that he didn't have some things going for him. He wasn't playing in a stadium that was really conducive to pitching. That defense behind him was not very good. So there were a couple things there that you could say, okay, maybe moving to PNC would help him a little bit. But I like his pitch mix. But other than that, I was never too, but it doesn't matter now, obviously.
Well, let's kind of like phrase in this sense. I know Kyle Gibson himself doesn't matter, right? But like that type of pitcher, more or less.
Right.
And I'll give you my thoughts on it also, which of course now is kind of pointless. But like when it happened, the first thing I said was meh. That was really it.
Right. Yeah.
Because to me, that's how it felt. He's safe in the sense of like, here's where he helps the team. He's going to give you innings. He is what he is, basically. Right. Now, mind you, the people that are looking at like the 5 ERA that said like this pitcher is just terrible, I don't buy too much into that being him. Not that he's like a great pitcher, but to me, he doesn't offer a whole lot of upside. And I think that's where it was met. Like, he's safe. He's a major league pitcher. He's a solid one. Like for all the people that are giving a lot of trash that Kyle Gibson sucks. Well, the team that went to the World Series last year paid for him to be their pitcher. So he has to be at least somewhat good, right? There's a bit of a reason that he's there. So like I look at it where he's not going to implode. He's not going to be terrible. He's going to save his bullpen. Like the one thing about him being there is That's an addition for the bullpen, because they're not going to have to go out there and pitch 6 innings every time he's out, like some of these pitchers. But to me, it was, like I said, very limited. When there was that article in Major League or MLB Trade Rumors that talked, and I think it was through Beer Temple, that, they were looking at Gibson and at the same time, Quintana. I don't know if that was like one or the other, or as we're alluding to, like maybe 2. Then I was a little on board. Okay, so you get Gibson in there.
Right.
He can be a stabilizer. you're set on the number 5 pitcher, right? And then you get someone in there with like some upside. Quintana be perfect because he's already been there. You know what he can do. Now is even more on board with it. But like if it's just a Gibson, I can fully understand like where you're coming from, Connor. But I think he got a lot more hate than what was deserved.
I would agree with that generally. And I was guilty of that a little bit myself. I mean, just, the standard stat line watching where it's just like, this is not what I want. But I think the deeper the dig, the more you see that it's really not, it wouldn't have been that bad. But it's like in the vacuum of this alone, not a huge fan. But within the context of other signings and other additions, even just signing more bullpen guys would have made me feel a little bit better about it.
But did you feel the same way when they signed Quintana last year and then Tyler Anderson the year
And
before?
that's
they were both coming off awful years. They came to Pittsburgh. Marin really helped them out and resurrected their careers. You know what I mean? That's exactly what I'm thinking they were feeling with Kyle Gibson.
I mean, they should be given
older
some credit.
Pitch.
They should be given some credit. They either they saw something in Anderson and Q where they got whatever it was. They did well with those.
Correct. They both came off 6 ERAs before the year before and became.
So I don't like the logic jump of okay, well then just keep getting guys who are not super great, and then you can make them good. You should just be getting players who are good, but they should get a little bit of credit for that. I would agree with that.
I think as a number 5 guy, it would make a lot of sense. But if they add Quintana, it would make the deal that much better. Because that rotation with Quintana, Brubaker, Keller, Contreras, and Gibson, that's not half bad.
Yeah, that's fair. And so, Jesse, I'll bring this up to you because in all of what you guys are saying, like the Quintana. Now, Anderson, I think it's fair to say there was still something you saw in Anderson that you could be comfortable in saying he was going to be pitch better than that. Quintana, and I'll be the first man. And I also, by the way, I've loved Quintana like his whole career. I've loved Quintana. He's one of my favorite pitchers. But I didn't like that signing at all. I really didn't. I didn't see much into it. I was like, I don't really see much that he's going to provide. He's going to be in the bullpen at the end of the year. But I think also what Gibson kind of shows what you're alluding to. So I want to ask you about this isn't really just this guy's going to be cheap, pure reclamation. Like he's safe. Right. And so you're talking about you have thoughts that they might go out there and get someone for, again, like going kind of against the grain, not getting this one guy for a 1-year, $3 million deal that they're going to invest into a little more money and maybe even extra years. So tell me your thoughts. Why do you think that? And you mentioned a few. So I don't know, kind of dive into that.
I feel like Cherington's tone has changed recently. He didn't say he's looking to make the team better or anything like that. I feel like he's past the rebuild stage. I think he's moving towards the build stage. And getting a guy like Gibson, that's not going to cost a lot of money, $4 or $5 million deal. It gives you more money to go after a Quintana, a Manaya. And I think that alone helps his team immensely. Because the rotation last year was not good. But Keller, Brubaker made huge strides. And they loved Jose Quintana, like a lot. And that's a mentor for them. And I would bring him back in a heartbeat. But also add Gibson to that. You have 5 decently good starting pitchers.
Okay. So I'm going to be at Joe36458 on Twitter. And I'm coming at you, Jesse. And I'm saying the Pirates have just heard from the star player, Bryan Reynolds, that he wants a trade because they won't pay him. They just signed 2 over-the-hill guys at first base that suck. Why the hell do you think they're going to go and spend money on a pitcher?
For one.
What about his tone tells you that? Cherington's terrible.
Cherington has not honestly done a bad job. And I think that, one, they offered Reynolds a competitive extension. That's just my feel. I could be completely wrong. But I feel like they offered him 4 or 5 years, and I think Reynolds wants 7 or 8. I don't want Reynolds for that long. He's already 28. That's going to be 34, 35-year-old old. I don't need that. Honestly, he's a great player, but he's not that guy. He's not McCutchen. He's not Stargell. He's not the centerpiece of an offense. So why should we pay that player that much money? He has the WAR and everything like that, but I really don't think Reynolds is that guy.
All right, we'll save the Reynolds still. Before we
Ooh.
jump full board on Reynolds, we're gonna save
Ooh.
that. Table that because I fear we're entering something right now. So I'm gonna stop that real quick. We're still on pitchers. But okay.
I have to drink some water, man. That was ooh.
But Connor, I don't know. Do you feel the same way about that? Do you feel that there's a shift in this rebuild per se, or Cherington?
A shift in the rebuild, maybe. I mean, it's hard to say. I probably would have felt a little bit better about it yesterday. I'll put it that way. But it's hard to base that off of a couple of comments and getting actual people at first base. You know, shifting to like, I'll say this, they aren't completely throwing anymore. They aren't putting cardboard cutouts at first base. That's an indicator that they might not be completely throwing. Whether or not that translates to equivalent attempts to improve at other positions, because that can't be just all that they do. If that's all that they do, then it wasn't a real attempt to improve. There's more steps here. And I think I need to see a little bit more before I decisively go, yes, they're really seriously looking to improve and to build now.
But if they weren't, don't you think they would have just accepted the trade for G-Man Choi and said, all right, we're done with first base. Let's look somewhere else. I think the factor that they went and made 2 moves for a position that was awful last year shows just the factor of that position was bad, and they want to improve that position. The rotation was bad, so let's improve that position too.
I agree with that to an extent. I think they could have just moved for Choi, and I don't think anybody would have been shocked to see that be their only move for first base. But the other problem with that is that you have to remember, going into this offseason, there was literally nobody on the 40-man who was actually a first baseman. So it was such a bad situation that I think looking back, they kind of had to get 2 guys. Now I'm happy. I'm pretty happy with what they did to get 2 guys on their roster, to get Santana and to get Choi. I think are both really good fits for this roster and this team. But I still need to see more at other positions. It can't just be this. Okay, we're trying to improve. See, we improved first base, which was historically bad, to hopefully maybe average. Like, that's not... Sure, that's technically a step, I guess, but I've been hurt too many times to go ahead and say, yeah, they're doing the I word, they're improving, before it actually happens.
Jesse, he said he's 21. He's been hurt too many times. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Some of us who aren't just 21. No, I'm just messing with you. But yeah, I mean, go ahead, Jesse. I don't know. Any rebuttal? Any talk? Any more about this? I mean, it's funny how Kyle Gibson has landed us here, but here we are.
So it works. It's always back to, hopefully they're actually going to put some money into the team.
Basically.
Yeah.
I really think it just feels different the way Cherington's talking at the end of the day.
I would agree with that.
I don't think he's never really said we're looking to improve the roster for next year. He's never said that, because he wasn't. I think he feels the farm system is good enough to get us where we need to be going.
Well, where do you think that as a follow-up question, where do you think it is that we need to be by the end of this upcoming season?
We need to be at 75 to 80 wins. If we can get to there, this is a 90-win team by 24.
Oof. See, I would have topped out at 75 wins for this upcoming year.
if they add Quintana and they add another fifth starter, Kyle Gibson light, you don't think they have enough pieces and add a little bit to the bullpen? You don't
I
think
think
they
they
have
could
enough
maybe.
to get there?
I think that maybe if they get a little lucky with that, they could maybe push for 80. But MLB season is a long season, man. A lot of stuff happens.
That's what you need. Those veterans like Santana and Choi that have been there, that are going to be able to help these young guys get through that.
I don't know. I'm not sure if I see that as an above 500 team or as a close to a 500 team, like 80, 75. You could talk me into it, I think, with adding the improvements that we've talked about. Because I think we talk about this improvement thing, but what we don't talk about is how far away this team still is. Like, they're coming off 100 losses. That's terrible. I mean, that's bad. The bullpen is horrendous. The lineup is awful. The hitting approach was terrible. I mean, there's so many distinct individual things that need to be improved for this team to approach that benchmark of like, okay, 500 baseball, that I can't confidently say that even with those improvements that we're talking about, which aren't even really that, they're not game changing, they're not significant improvements in the way that like other teams would quantify a significant improvement, those aren't going to be the things that push us over, that edge to get to 500 or close to 500 baseball. That is something that they're just going to have to learn to do. So I'm not sure that you can really talk me into like 80 wins next year. I mean, just like situational hitting, like this is a little side tangent, but people are talking about getting like Joey Gallo or getting Cody Bellinger. And I hate that so much because people complained all last year about how bad situational hitting was and how much this team struck out and how much they could not put a ball in play when they needed to. And then some of the same people that I see complaining about that, I see talking about adding Joey Gallo to the team. Like, that is not going to improve your quality of watching this team at all.
I think situational hitting.
That was kind of its own thing. I just wanted to stick that in there, that I am so totally opposed to both of those guys.
I think situational hitting is kind of done, though. I really don't think, like, even a guy like Reynolds,
it was bad even in the context of baseball in 2022 and 2023, though.
Right.
That's the problem.
They don't care about giving themselves up to driving around. They don't care about bunting to move a guy over. Even Reynolds had 50, 60 some RBIs last year. And I get it. The 1-2 hitters weren't great. But if Cruz was able to put up almost the same RBI numbers as Reynolds hitting leadoff, that means Reynolds wasn't doing his job. I did not feel confident when he was at the plate with runners in scoring position that he was going to actually drive in that run. Not one bit.
I'll give you that. His batting average runners
was terrible.
in scoring position
it was awful.
He really struggled there. So that's for sure. Yeah. I like all that, and like I'm kind of on board with you too, Connor, in regards to like the Joey Gallo and Bellinger thing. For one, I actually feel more comfortable with Gallo. I feel
really? That's interesting.
Yeah, you gotta explain why.
I'm kind of. It could just be me. It probably is just me. Whatever, but I think I'm past the Cody Bellinger is a good baseball player, and it's not as if like he just needs to get out of LA. He's just a bad
I kind of hate his swing.
Baseball player. He's just not good. He can't catch up to the fastball. Like, he can't hit fastballs. I don't think much now. Joey Gallo, I feel he also could benefit from the shift. I think there's still something in it to him. Like, he just kind of went to New York and just became a pumpkin, which a lot of players do. And I feel like with him, he might be able to turn around. I'm more confident that Joey Gallo could turn his career back around than Bellinger. That's where I'm at. Now, both are good defensively, and that's why there's still value there for them. And Lord knows this team needs an outfielder who also can play defense. So, but also to your point, what you're seeing in the signings with Choi and Santana is right. They're the exact opposite of what this team represented last year. Like, they are looking and saying, this team could not hit. They couldn't get on base. They struck out too much. And here's guys that do the opposite. So, to your point, maybe they aren't going to Gallo direction or Bellinger either, just because they don't want that mold anymore. They have 8 guys already. They have like 39 guys, honestly, in the organization right now that can do that. So, but let's move forward because we're definitely a little bit into this. So, Jesse, you want to bring a topic too, right? What's yours?
Yes. How do we honestly feel? Do we feel like we have enough elite talent in the farm system to take us to where we want to go?
This is gonna be a good topic.
It just scares me. I mean, I think Andy is a superstar. I think a lot of people aren't going to agree with this one, but I think Peguero is going to end up being a superstar.
Ooh, Peguero.
I do.
Okay.
Man,
the hot takes are for the end of the show.
Oh,
I'll say no one. Right. But I just don't know if we have enough top tier talent to really push us over the edge.
Why Peguero though? What I mean, I know he's. What about his? I know he's still appealing for his tool set, but between the production and it's not like Cruz where it's like the otherworldly tool set. What about him has him, for lack of a better term, pegged for you as superstar?
I like it. It's 100% the tool set. I just feel like he gives me such hardcore Marte vibes. I really feel like they traded Marte for Marte as a shortstop. I feel like he can do it all. I think he's just young, a little immature, but I think once he gets it all together, he's going to be great. And you got to look at it like this. Cruz, when he was in the minors, he didn't really tear it up. We just saw the tools and hoped and prayed that he was going to be as good as he is. Am I right? Last year, he didn't do anything in the minors, to be honest. He wasn't really a superstar.
I'm not sure that counts.
Why?
I'm not sure that counts.
Was he in the minors?
Because it was so abbreviated and it was so obvious that he was being manipulated that I'm not sure I really count that as any development time for him.
I don't.
He should have just been there.
I think he should have been there, and he should have stayed as long as he did. Personally, I just don't think he completely had it all together when he was brought up. We wanted to see him up here because he's fun, he's exciting. But I think the time in the minors did him well.
I would. I think it sure did the front office well, and I'll put it that way.
I don't disagree with that, but I don't think that's the main reason he was still down there.
But in terms of do we have enough elite level talent, I'm concerned about pitching depth. I'm a little concerned in that area because for me personally, you have Priester, Ortiz, Burrows, and at least in terms of guys that are like we're gonna see soon, because we're not gonna see Solometo soon. That's not a soon thing. We're not gonna see Bubba Chandler soon. And with pitching guys, I try not to like get too excited when they're that far away, because I mean any number of things can happen. Any number of elbows can be blown out. I mean, it just stuff like that happens. After that, I'm a little concerned. I don't know.
Is there a top of the rotation guy?
I think it would be fair to say that Luis maybe has the highest ceiling out of all of those guys.
Is that only because he throws hard?
No, I think his stuff is unbelievable. But the problem is that like he can't just have two pitches. I've seen some people make the Luis Castillo comparisons, and I kind of like those comparisons, only because it makes me feel better. But he really does need a third pitch. He has that changeup, but he doesn't really have a good feel for it. But I'm a believer in Luis Ortiz. He wasn't. I'll be honest. He wasn't really a guy that was on my radar until I actually like sat down and watched him pitch and was like, okay, the stuff's there. I don't think control is a major issue for him. I think what he has a feel for, he can locate at least well enough to use it. But he just has to add more stuff to the repertoire for him. Priester, I'm not sure if I see that top of the rotation guy with him, but it would also be very fair to say his floor is probably much higher than Ortiz's would be. But I mean, I'm concerned a little bit about pitching, a little bit. Especially with how expensive pitching is. We need a significant amount of our pitching to come from the farm. I don't think that's any secret. That's just where that's going to have to come from.
I agree. I think that's why, personally, if I was a GM, I would draft for pitching instead of offense. I feel like you can find offense for a much cheaper price than you can find pitching. And I feel like we haven't really, other than Solomon and Chandler, I don't think there's a lot of pitching in the minors. And that's what scares me the most, because even when we were good, we never had that top tier guy. Burnett was good. Liriano was good. Garrett Cole was good. He was never what he is in New York good. And I think that's what you need to really push yourself through the playoffs. Think about it like Jake Arrieta took the Cubs all the way to the World Series. Madison Bumgarner took the Giants all the way to the World Series. And I don't feel like we have that in the system.
I'll say this, and I think we said it time and time again too. Like, that's my biggest concern about this farm system is the elite talent. It's deep as hell.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of prospects, right? You know, the thing is, like, if you want to look at the Pirates, 15 through 30 prospects, they're better than probably having an organization. The issue is, like, where's their 1 through 10 compared to everyone else? And that really is it. You know, like, there's not a Kutch. There's not this, like, you don't have the Kutch, Marte, Pedro, Cole, like, you know, like this plethora of top end prospects that, you know, are going to do pretty well. Like you mentioned about Endy earlier. Cruz is like the biggest one. Cruz, but he's such a hit or miss type guy. And I think we're seeing him trend towards the hit, but he was the boomer bust guy. He could be a superstar and he could be a complete bust. Yeah. And after that, it was like, what's left, guys? You know, like, Are you going to have a bunch of 2 to 3 WAR players, or is there someone who can put up 5 WAR? Like, is there a guy who can carry to be a potential MVP? And you don't see it. Even with Cruz, I think with some of his flaws, again, I'm not trying to say, I mean, I feel he's going to be good, but like, to be that Kutch, I think a lot's going to have to click.
Yeah.
And
no, that's very fair.
So who's the Marte on the team?
Peguero.
You know? Like, who? But like, I guess that's what I'm getting at. It's just like, I feel like there's a lot of complementary pieces, but is there really 1 or 2 that can really step up? Now, as you mentioned earlier with Endy, he had a huge year last year. Maybe he can become that guy. And his versatility is a huge advantage as well. Like, maybe he's going to become that guy just because you can carry a backup catcher who can also be your outfielder, you know, like the Ohtani factor. If he can save roster spots, like, that's value. But that's my biggest fear. And then, of course, on top of that, to the pitching side, there's just not enough arms. You know, there's not top end. Like, who's the ace?
Right.
Like, when Cole was drafted, when Tyler was drafted, like, they were drafted because they could be aces. And then Glasnow comes out, like, look at this talent. Like, he could be that type of a guy. Who is a 1 or 2 guy in this organization?
I really don't think we have it. I think Ortiz is honestly your
in
best
terms
guess.
Of raw stuff. Because I'm not sure that, because there have been people that have said Rowe, but I'm not sure if I'm going there with him.
If Renzi could learn to pitch inside at all, he could maybe take that next step, but he refuses to throw inside at all.
I'm also concerned about innings with him. Building him up to the innings that he would need to actually be called an ace. And this loops back to the Kyle Gibson discussion a little bit. I meant to bring this up earlier in terms of like why that kind of guy would be good for this team. If you look at this rotation, there are some guys, particularly Rowe, that it's like, is he going to give you the innings that you really need? Because what did he last year was the most innings he had thrown in his professional career, correct?
Correct.
And what was that number at? What was that total? I don't want to give a number that's wrong here. 90. It was 95.
Right.
It was 95. I was gonna say 100.
I thought it was 100 too.
But it was 95, and that was the highest he had gone in his career. So So yeah, it is a little concerning because I'm not sure Rowe can really be that guy if he's not giving you those innings.
But really, the starters today don't throw 200 innings. Anymore.
They don't, but
You
they
know,
also but they're also not throwing 95.
No, but
That's
this year
still under.
This year you can probably get Rowe to 130, 150 range. And then you can have a Priest or a Burrows come up and finish out the rest of the year for Contreras. And then he's ready for that 170, 180 kind of carry the team role. Because he doesn't have to be an ace next year.
No.
You know what I mean? But as long as you can get that innings up to the 170 mark for the 24 season, I don't think he's an ace. I don't think he has the control to be an ace. But I think he can be a 2 or a 3 in this rotation.
I think I'd be more comfortable saying 3 than 2.
We got a lot of 3s, so I'm trying to bump somebody up and give them more extra credit.
I know what you mean.
But I think that goes to basically both your point. I think you're really agreeing on this. That's kind of the issue. That the elite talent. I think this organization has a lot of, like you're saying, 3s, 4s, 5s. How and when do they get the 1 or 2? That's kind of a problem, especially with a small market team.
But since they've been drafting recently, have we seen that top pitcher available? I don't think it's Jack Leiter, and I don't think there's anybody.
So how do you feel about trading Reynolds? I'm joking.
Is that a segue?
No, I'm joking.
That is your best bet.
I disagree with that, but I just wanted to throw that out there to be mean.
Can I go off of that?
Do you guys want to get into it?
Yes.
Sure, let's do it. Let's just get it out of the way. Let's do it.
All right. So Bryan Reynolds demands a trade. It's
Trade.
fresh. Okay.
So I think before we get into anything else, I think it's kind of important to note that I don't think it really actually like changes anything about the particulars of that situation. All it really changes is that we know that they were at least trying to hash out an extension, couldn't agree on a number. Reynolds requests a trade. It doesn't change anything about what the team is actually going to do with him one way or the other than like preventing him, other than like he's not signing an extension at least immediately. You know, if you're requesting a trade, that's probably not a good sign for that. But in terms of like, he has no leverage here. Like the request for a trade doesn't really mean a whole lot. But it does bring up a lot of questions of like, okay, should you? Because I don't think it's changed the actual process or what you'd get for him or what it would take to move him for the Pirates.
I personally think you have to trade him at this point because what you don't want is that in the locker room, in the dugout, being over his head all year, and the young players around that hearing that he wants to go and everything like that. Would
it be worse for them to be in an environment where a guy wanted to get paid, the team didn't meet it, and so then he just got traded? I mean, But
the thing is, we don't know what the Pirates offered. You know what I mean? Like, who knows?
That's true.
Who knows what they offered? They could have offered him $20-25 million a year. They probably didn't.
No, they didn't. I promise you they didn't.
But they possibly could have. You know what I mean? So, like, you can't say the Pirates didn't pay him. They at least attempted. They offered him an extension. He said no. He wants to go. This is how you get your ace. This is how you get 2 top pitching prospects or 1 pitching prospect and 1 current major leaguer into the system. And I think you can replace Reynolds' production on this team. I think Cruz can easily do a 5-WAR season.
But as it stands right now, this guy is still your best player.
But my best player wants to go. So I'm going to let him go. And I'm going to replace him and get top-tier pitching talent in the system. They don't really have another chip to do that anyhow.
So far, nobody has met their asks for Reynolds to start with. So the idea that we're going to get like 2 top-tier pitching prospects for Reynolds, I'm not sure if I believe that.
But if you're an outfielder away from being where you want to be in your division, you're going to make that deal. Because if you have 3
then
or 4
why hasn't
starters,
anybody made that deal yet? Why has nobody made
because I do think the asking price is going to be less than it was before.
Exactly.
I don't think they're going to get as much as before.
So how are they?
But they were asking for
top-tier pitching talents out of it then.
Because it doesn't have to be. One could be a major league player, a major league starting pitcher. That's good. And then you add in a prospect that's close, like you trade him for like a Pablo Lopez and like a Max Meyer. I know Max Meyer's having Tommy John or whatever, but that's perfect. His value is going to be a little bit less because of that. You can grab 2 of those guys for him. You got to do what you got to do to get a starting pitch, to get some elite starting pitching on this team. Add Bednar to the deal. Do what you got to do to get 2 good starting pitchers on this team.
Ooh.
He's a closer. We don't even win games. We don't need that.
I'm so biting my tongue right now for so many different reasons.
Think about how easy replacing a relief
Yeah,
pitcher
DiNardo,
actually is.
I was about to pass this one off to you. I don't know.
Hey, this is your time. This is your time to shine, both of you. I mean, okay, so I'll put it this way. I think, just to add my 2 cents on like what you're saying, Jesse, also, I think it could be fair to say that the asks weren't met, but the asks could also be astronomically high because you don't have a desire to trade him.
Correct.
But now, if there is more of a will to trade him, and also to Connor's point, it doesn't necessarily mean anything's changed. Like he can say he wants traded, and you can say, "Good for you."
Yeah, good luck with that, buddy.
So that doesn't really matter. But maybe this sways. Maybe they're more open. Who knows? But what I'm alluding to here is, if they're more willing to trade, they could now look at a reasonable trade and make the deal, right? Before they weren't reasonable because like if you want them, you're going to have to make the most ridiculous trade in the world to get him because we have no desire to trade him. Now, you know what? Those couple pitchers, they're looking more enticing now because, you know, he doesn't want to stay here. He's not going to sign. There's also hope he could sign beforehand. Maybe if that bridge is done, they're more willing to look to trade, right? And now they're looking to trade to accommodate it. And those guys look more enticing. So that's where I'm at. It wasn't met before because there really wasn't a desire to. Now, if there is one, you could find one that matches up. That makes sense for both sides. But I agree. And this isn't me saying he needs to be traded, but I will say he does present a path to those players we were just talking about that this team is missing.
Correct. And that's really your only way to get there. It's either Reynolds or Bednar at this point. And Bednar is not going to fetch you what Reynolds is going to fetch you in the trade.
As a counterpoint to that, Jesse, you were talking about how you feel that Cherington that this front office is actually trying to improve the team headed into next year. How does this fit in with that? Because that's my question.
Okay, so that was said before the Reynolds news came out. Let's not forget that. I don't personally ultimately think they do trade him. I think he gives them currently the best opportunity to win more games at the current state. But if you get an offer on their table that's a great trade deal, you have to make the deal. You can't keep him forever.
I think if somebody meets their outlandish price, then yeah, they should do it. But otherwise, he's still under team control for the next 3 years. So I don't see what their like immediate incentive is to do it unless they seriously get somebody that they feel is absolutely going to be that guy. Otherwise, I don't see a reason to move him. I'm not moving Reynolds unless it's for somebody that is absolutely that guy. Nothing short of that is going to, move me at all.
But that's why you go for somebody that's closer to the majors. I don't want any single A prospects, anything like that in the trade for him. I want players that are at least close or have already made their debut and showed that they can handle it. I don't want to risk trading him and getting nothing back at the end of the day. I want to make sure that when we do, if we do trade him, that we're getting a ace starting pitcher in this rotation. Do not trade him for any more outfielders or shortstops.
Well, that was depressing.
Let's pivot this. Because honestly, the news today, I know everyone's talking basically how we're talking here, right? But like the news to me, it struck a different way. And I guess I want to ask how you guys feel, because it's not so much like, oh my God, they got to trade Bryan Reynolds. He's not going to sign an extension. I personally feel that this has been a complete failure from the get-go. I don't understand why he hasn't been traded since they decided that they're going to progress this rebuild as long as they have, right? And that
Right.
to me, this now presents even like this is even more of a failure. Like he should have been traded 2 years ago, basically.
You
or
guys
even a
have
year
talked
ago.
about this in the podcast a lot, where it's like at the beginning of last year, where it's like, okay, this is the stepping stone year where they get a little better, maybe get to 70, 75 wins. They actually try a little bit. And then if you don't, you know, that you do that and you have to get a Reynolds extension done. And if you don't, why is he here? And then
Right.
we threw that entire year. So now it's still, okay, why is he here? And now we're headed into this year and he's got 3 years left and now no extensions happening. So it is fair to ask, okay, then why is he here?
So, and what let's get to really though is that all is true, but like where I'm at is this is your top player. All I have and us is really secondhand information and speculation of a lot of things, right? This is a guy who's in the clubhouse, who talks to the people that we're speculating on this every single day, you know, aspect for the most part. If he's at the point he wants a trade, what does that tell me internally? That's going on. Like that's my concern also. When he comes out today, the rumors that I want to trade, I'm more concerned of the direction. You know what I mean? Like if they're that close, and I know money, but maybe we can still work things out, you know, but I don't know. I think I feel like I'm at the point where there also is just more than money. And I understand like the money's not met, but I feel like if the money's not met, I can still work on it because I like this organization. I've said I want to be here time and time again, but the money's not met and I want to go like a complete 180. It kind of makes me feel uneasy about how close his team is to winning. So I don't know. I know like you talk about Jesse, and I understand because the Troy signing or trade, I should say, like the Carlos Santana signing, the words that he's spoken of, I kind of feel there's maybe a shift this year in like the way they've gone before. But now with this coming out, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I personally think he wants the trade now because he's 100% because of age. I think he's scared to hit the market at 31, 32 or sign a shorter extension and hit the market at 33, 34. I think he feels like if he can leave Pittsburgh, somebody will lock him up and give him 8, 9 years, 7, 8 years extension, and he's not going to get that from us. And I don't think he should. I think that's why the timing is weird. But also at the same time, last year, at the end of the year, he said he wants to be here. That also confuses the crap out of me. Like what did change, just as you were saying, what did change between today and 2 months ago?
Right. That's where I'm at. Because the money wasn't there beforehand either.
Right.
Well, the other thing is that I have a feeling that this has been a long, drawn out process, and this is like their first. I'm not sure if this is their first real serious attempt to like actually get this done, but there was talk about this, you know, numbers being thrown around since what, like, was it spring training of last year?
I believe like we heard about it, right, with last year and such. But I believe what we also heard last year was that it was also talked about the year before.
Yeah, that it was. Yeah, that's what I recall as well. That it was also the year
before. We
before.
didn't hear about it the year before, but last year when it was talked about, we were basically enlightened that it also took place the year before.
So it could finally be that this has just been going on now for so long, and it's just like the Pirates still aren't meeting, my number. I'm 28. It could be like what Jesse said. All right, time to
Cash in.
Yep. Because he's been a productive. He's been a very good player. If the Pirates aren't meeting his market value, I mean, again, he has no leverage here. Like, the Pirates aren't forced to move him at all, and this makes absolutely, at least in theory, makes absolutely no difference into whether they actually are going to move him or not. It might increase people asking, although it seems like everybody and their uncle had already asked. So I don't know. It's hard to gauge. I would like more info, but it's hard to say whether we'll ever get more info. Because really what I want is numbers to give you a more robust analysis on that. I would like numbers on how far apart they actually are. It sucks. It just sucks to be in this position. Because no matter which side of this camp that you're on, you're going to come to the conclusion that, man, it never should have happened. That it never should have gotten to this point. If you're in the trade Reynolds camp, you probably felt that this is like DiNardo does. If you're going to do it, that you should have done it, way earlier in this whole rebuild process instead of keeping him on these 101 loss teams for no reason.
I think Cherington wanted him traded. Honestly, I think Reynolds, the only reason he's still on his team is because of Nutting. I don't think Nutting wants to see Reynolds go somewhere else and ball out like he's been doing in Pittsburgh. I think if it was 100% up to Cherington, he would have dealt him last year after his All-Star season.
And if you're on the extension side of things, if you're on the extension side of things, you probably feel that this extension should have happened 2 seasons ago. So that's what I find funny about this is no matter what perspective you're taking on this, it's that the Pirates have just been treading water on this and like not making a decision one way or the other for just so long.
But they didn't have a huge reason to extend him. They had him for 5 more years 2 years ago.
Well, that's not I'm not making that argument right now.
And even if they are competitive in 24, 25, they would still have Reynolds if they wanted to keep him. They don't have to extend him ever. They could trade him at the beginning of 25 season if they really wanted to. And still
let me put you on the spot here.
Number back.
So, Jesse, it's over. Reynolds isn't signing an extension. Cherington knows that. Nutting knows that. It's over. It's all speculation. This isn't me saying it, right? But speculation. Here's the scenario. It's done. Are you trading Bryan Reynolds this offseason, or is Bryan Reynolds on the 2023 Pittsburgh Pirates?
I'm trading Bryan Reynolds this offseason, and I'm trading him to Miami. It's that simple.
Sounds like you. I mean, it's done with you. You got the whole trade worked out.
I'm already done. Signed, sealed, and delivered. I know exactly what
it happen.
I feel like it's so easy because I feel like Kim and G will overpay for Reynolds. Not what their original asking price was 2 years ago, but I think they will overpay for him because she's coveted him forever. That is the piece that they really want more than anything. So ship him off, bring me back pitching, and we'll be done. That's that easy.
They have the pitching to do it if they wanted to.
Exactly. And they have 4 or 5 good starting pitchers currently in their rotation. Give me one of those. Give me Max Meyer. And thank you very much. We're done.
Connor.
If they are truly done and they are miles apart. Yeah. I mean, I don't say that with a lot of joy, but I mean, I still need to get that. I still need to get what this team needs, and that's high-end arm. But, yeah.
So let's say this. Let's say this never happened, okay? Reynolds still wants to be here and everything like that. 2024 comes around. We're competing for the playoffs, and we just need 2 good pitchers, 1 good starting pitcher. Would you trade Reynolds at that point? there's no extension locked up, anything like that. He has one more season.
If he has no extension and he still wants to be here, then well, I have bad news for you. Whether or not he wants to be here doesn't matter. I'm sorry to tell you that. If you care about that sort of thing at that point, if he doesn't have an extension, then like, I mean, in the scenario you've given me, you're like, oh, well, you don't need Reynolds, but you need arms, and Reynolds could get you arms. Then yeah, I'd trade Reynolds.
But that's the scenario we're currently in. If you think about it. What is the biggest thing we're missing from the farm system, as we all agreed, is pitching. Top end pitching. Reynolds brings back top end pitching. All right. An ace makes his team a completely different animal. We didn't really even have an ace back when we were in the playoffs. Garrett Cole was a great pitcher, but he was never really that ace that we needed him to be when we were there.
Another thing, to be fair, I mean, if you're talking playoff deep runs, you're really looking to have about 2.
Yeah.
And you can grab 2. And then you have a whole bunch of number 3 starters behind them.
A whole bunch. A whole lot of number 3 starters. Yeah. That's the scenario they're in. So what I want to say is, just to go back to you, Jesse, like, I can sympathize what you said in the fact that this team is going to be better in 2023, with the acknowledgement of Bryan Reynolds is supposed to be here because you weren't looking to trade him.
Correct.
This does change. Like, the direction could have been they're going to be better, and it still could be leading that way. But if Reynolds is certainly just cutting it off right now today, like, it's done, then I think you have to trade him as well.
Yeah. I
and if that is the case, you have to still look to get better, but also ensuing with that, you got to trade Reynolds. So it's going to be an interesting winter meetings. I'll put it that way, and a whole offseason.
It's going to be exciting winter meetings for sure. I love the winter meetings, and I think this is going to make it even more fun for us.
It's going to be interesting. For some people, it might not be exciting.
Yeah, fun's
not might exactly not be excited.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah. So let's do this. Let's go in further. Let's start wrapping this show up. I appreciate everything. So what I want to do is, although Jesse seemed like he gave a few of his, tell us your hot take. What is a hot take that you believe in that most others don't? Jesse, you go first this time.
Okay. Well, I'm going back to the one I said. Leo Peguera is probably, out of this entire farm system, in my opinion, will have the second best career out of all of them. The tolls are just off the chart. He's a great player. And I think that once he gets it all together, and I feel like people forget how young he is for his level. Everywhere he's gone, he's been one of the youngest players there. I think once he gets to the major leagues, he is your Marte, without a doubt.
I like it. Connor, what's yours?
This is like a lukewarm take.
Don't bring that weak ass shit over here.
But I don't have anything else for you, man.
All right.
I think Kanan Smith-Njigba is a major leaguer. I think he's going to have a better career than Jack Sawinski. I think he's going to have a better career. I mean, this is obviously a low bar, but I think he's going to be way better than any of the other outfield guys that are immediately available. Does that mean I think he's going to be good? Different question entirely. But I have way more faith in him than I have other guys, and that's just like complete and utter bias. I like Kanan Smith-Njigba.
That's interesting. I mean, I can respect that. Like you said, hot take. He's really the forgotten person. No one really talks about, especially because the injury. Like, no one talks about. No one's looking forward really to him. And I liked him. I appreciated his talents.
I don't understand how he has so little power in his lines. Like, looking at that dude, especially when he got called up and you got to see like him on like actual MLB broadcast, that dude is jacked. He's like
Maurice Jones-Drew, but a baseball player.
He is ripped. So how he can manage to have so little power while looking like that is kind of impressive.
Yeah.
But
I think PNC Park will work pretty well for him. I don't think it takes a lot to get it over the Clemente wall.
Well,
I think Cal Mitchell doesn't. No, he's a lefty, isn't he? Aren't they
He's
all
righty.
lefties? I thought the whole team was left-handed.
No, CSN's a righty. I'm 100% sure of this.
I think you're wrong.
All right. Well, let's move forward. So there's the hot takes. I like it. So here is the question I have for you guys that you don't know about. Doesn't pertain to baseball at all. So of the 50 states, which one is the absolute worst? Go ahead, Connor.
Hold on. Oh, sorry. I was looking at something else. Mississippi.
Tell us why. Yeah, tell us why.
It's Mississippi. Do I really gotta explain why Mississippi is bad?
You gotta provide us some information.
For one,
don't just be a rant show and just say something without know how you got that answer.
Mississippi, the climate is terrible, the humidity's awful. How do I say this without being especially mean? It's got some of the worst education. It's got some of the worst healthcare. It's got some of the worst like life expectancy. I mean, you name it, Mississippi's close to the bottom.
Well, Connor just lost all the people from the state of Mississippi.
Oh yeah, we went.
Not one guy.
It's like we went from the number 2 baseball podcast in Belgium. We went from the number 2 baseball podcast in Mississippi. We're all the way down. We're just dropping in the rankings like crazy.
That's right. It's all your fault.
Wait, Jim lives in Kentucky? Can I change my answer?
No, you already answered it.
But Jim lives in Kentucky, right?
Yeah, he does. Jesse, worst state?
Florida. Easy. And I'm in Florida. It's so hot all the time. And it rains all the time. And there's hurricanes. And the politics are awful here. I hate Florida. There's not a single positive feature about Florida.
You guys have Burmese pythons down there.
Yeah.
That's terrible. That's awful.
Flying cockroaches. Man, Florida is awful.
Don't you guys have the invasive snails down there that like eat your like the siding on your house?
I hope not. But I have no idea.
What am I thinking? There's like Florida just has a ridiculous amount of like crazy invasive species for no reason.
Yes, that is correct.
Because dumb Florida people think they can keep them as pets, and then they're like, "Be free."
I was saying, but that's really more southern. That's like the Everglades, South Florida.
Yeah,
that's where you get into all the crazy shit.
But don't they have like the yearly Burmese python hunt where they go out and pay people?
Do.
It's unbelievable.
That's Florida people, though. You know, they're all about it.
And every once in a while, a gator gets somebody's dog down there. My cousin Nick tells me I have a family down there, and they tell me all the time that like every once in a while, somebody locally gator gets a dog.
Connor, Smith and Jigba's a lefty.
Is he? What?
Yeah. They're all lefties. They don't have any right-handed hitters. He's checking my.
See, that tells you how hot take might. Maybe I was thinking because he throws righty. I don't know. Why did I think he was a righty? That's so weird.
All right. Well, there's our hot takes. There's our questions. There's our show.
All right. Well, I put like a sinkhole in my hot take. I didn't even get his hand right.
Speaking of sinkholes in Florida. So anyways, so let's get out of here. So once again, I really do appreciate you both coming on. Connor, Jesse, thanks a lot.
Appreciate it.
Any last words before we do go?
Whatever you do, don't follow my social media. It's terrible.
I agree.
Whatever the Pirates do, trade Bryan Reynolds. Get him off the team. Sell the team.
Might agree.
I will say as a final word on the Bryan Reynolds thing, the easiest solution to all of this is to just run Bob Nutting out of town and back to like whatever Greenbrier bunker he came from.
Yeah. And this is my last words. When talking about Reynolds and you talk about Bednar, I'm 100%, and I'm not going to get any love for this at all, but I'm also 100% of trading Bednar, and I was last year as well. For the simple facts that he is a reliever, he has peak value, and this team is nowhere close to winning. And not just a reliever, but a closer. So go get that return, because when you're good in 2025, and because he's a reliever and he's not, you've lost everything. So, all right, let's get out of here. Again, appreciate you guys. Bye-bye.
Peace.
Peace.